Welcome to the Scottish Watches podcast. We've got a returning friend. It's somebody that we have met numerous times across the globe, not just at Geneva Watch Days, not just at Watches and Wonders, not just at Dubai Watch Week. I'm pretty sure we've seen this guy in different places. He crawls out wherever there's a watch event, whenever there's a watch show, whenever launches are to be announced. And he's here today to announce a whole load of watches that are going to be appearing all over Instagram, all over the blogs, all over YouTube. In actual fact, we have got Xavier from Czapek, not a stranger to the show by any means at all. A good guy and a very funny individual. Usually when you've got a CEO of such a prestigious Swiss brand, they're very stuffy. You know, they've got that stiff upper lip. They've got the suited and booted look about them. Xavier tells you it like it is. He's a true collector, a true enthusiast, and he's got the business acumen to run a watch brand. So it's my pleasure to introduce yet again to the Scottish Watches listeners and now viewers, Xavier from Czapek. How are you doing?
Good. Hello. Hello, Scottish friends. It's a great pleasure to be back with you again. And I will pretend I will not remember the mention of a prestigious watch brand, because that was actually my biggest pain over the last 2 years, which is to have moved from the startup to the recognized company and to not be ready for that. I mean, I think I preferred the startup feeling. So I'm putting it back into the company all the time so that we don't lose that way of working, that way of thinking, this lean startup concept that I'm so fan of.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I still feel like I'm pretty new to the watch industry and the podcasting field, but it's over half a decade, over 500 episodes. I can't pretend to be the young pretender any longer. Neither can you. But we're here today not to rekindle memories of the past, although we will delve back into the recent history of Czapek and what's been happening, because you guys are consistently doing good things. It was over a year ago you were last on the show, and it was with Collective, because there was a great limited edition release that I got to see in real life when I went to Geneva Watch Days last year. And the pictures, the videos, the renders, we say this all the time, they do not marry up, they do not measure up to what you can actually see when you put a watch on the wrist or you've got it in front of you. When you actually see the specular highlights, the way that light glistens and dances across that dial, absolutely magnifique. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's been happening in the last 12 months, because it's been a while since you were on, and what is coming for Watches and Wonders. But the first thing we should probably do, because we've got a whole load of new listeners, a whole load of new viewers, and a whole load of new people following Scottish Watches. So for those folks that can't remember, and those folks that are brand new, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction to Czapek, the history, and how it came to be?
Normally you start with the wrist check, Ricky. What happened? You got confused today.
No. We're keeping the good stuff for later on. We'll get the wrist check done and then we'll move on to something else. But give people a little bit of the background, a little bit of the history of the brand.
It's a twofold description. There is the history and the story. The history is about François Czapek, a Czech-born Polish watchmaker who fought against the Russians who were invading Poland, and in particular Warsaw. And at the end of this battle called the Warsawianka, he left with a lot of other Polish involved into that battle because they lose. They lost against against the Russians, and you have on one side François Czapek going to Geneva, starting a watchmaking business, registered as a watchmaker, and then you have other people coming, and one of them is going to be a very famous partner of his. So François Czapek started the first business called Czapek & Moreau, then a second business with this Polish guy who is no one else than Antoine Norbert de Patek. And then when they part away, he starts his new business, his own business, which is Czapek & C, Czapek & Company. And that's the company that we have revived. And this company was very famous in the period 1845 to 1870. In 1870, there is in Paris an uprising, another uprising. It's called La Commune. It ends in a bloodbath. And the last picture we have of the Czapek era is a Paris store in Place Vendôme with a barricade in front of it. So everybody knows the French from the image of the barricade. It's actually a relatively small event because it was only in Paris. The barricades were not during the revolution. It was in this surprising. And and yes, the Paris store for Czapek is very important because it's also not only it's the main store, but it's the first store of the Place Vendôme. So the first watchmaking store of the Place Vendôme, of the history of the Place Vendôme that we know, is the Czapek store. So it's a good blend, of first footsteps. And so in 2012, Harry re-registered the brand. In 2013, he meets me, who is looking for a new project, a new adventure. I bring in Sébastien, and the three of us, at the very beginning of 2014, we signed the first agreement to start working together. So it's exactly 10 years later. And we say nothing, it's a complete work in secret. There are 12 persons that are put into the loop of the secret. A lot of them working in the industry as journalists and who advise us. It's like the 12 very special person who have advised us. And then from that, we start in October 10, 2015 with a crowdfunding equity campaign to relaunch the brand. So first we raise funds for the company, and that's a very specific job. It's not Kickstarter. It's you actually sell your shares, so it's a much more difficult and much more legally intensive or then legally dangerous. And then we launched the collection in March 2016 in Baselworld, and that's the real beginning, commercial beginning of the company. And we launched after a second collection. So the first collection was Quai des Bergues. Second collection is Place Vendôme. It's a tourbillon. And the third collection is a chrono that we do with Vaucher. This time it's their own chrono, but they launch it with us. So we are pleased to see that already people look at us as a company of purists for purists. So we don't cut corner. We traveled always in a low fare companies economy and saved every penny to put this penny in the watches. And that probably is one of the reasons of the success of Czapek, is that this honesty and this decision to be focused really on the final watch of everyone is probably what has made the difference over time. And then another thing that was very important is the creativity. That was Czapek work. That was his quest. He was in love with beauty, and we intensely analyzed his work over plenty of watches. We selected one to be our inspiration for the Quai des Bergues, the 7-day Power Reserve movement, our first one, and for the Place Vendôme, the second one. And from that, we could derive his codes. We could also understand his quest for beauty. And the fact that he was always looking at something slightly new, slightly surprising, to make people fall in love with the watches. And so that we're continuing this quest. And that's what we are going to present in Watches and Wonder this year.
And why should we not present something else? Why don't we do that wrist check thing that you gave me a hard time about only a few moments ago? And you're the guest, so you can tell us today what you've got on the wrist, Xavier.
I can't tell you the guest, but I love you, Ricky. So I'm very nice with you. With some people, I take over the interview and I revert the roles, and they are really like, what's happening there? So on the wrist, I got a mythical model. It's called the Terra Deli Secret Alloy. It's an Antarctic, so it's the fourth collection that we launched. And because if you want, we had a small hourglass in the middle, number 4. So that's the fifth, if I count the hourglass. And it's a gray that is a natural gray. So it's the color of the metal. And this is something that is extremely important, that for me is the game changer somehow. So I wear it today because of the way I'm dressed. I'm more dressed in gray, white, and brown colors. So this gray is beautiful combination. It's also critical because it was a lame dial, and that the lame technique is actually lost. So it's always a nightmare to make to make lame dials.
Do you want to explain what that one is? Because I'm not familiar with it.
So everybody knows satin polish, no? And you do satin polish with a band, okay? And with satin polish, you achieve a certain effect, okay? Now, you can go beyond the satin polish that is very regular and use a comb. So it's a more, if you want, it's beyond the brush, okay? So it creates some stripes on the dial that are thin but that are irregular. And that's this irregularity. That's the regularity in the irregularity that you look for. That's very weird, but that creates an effect that is exactly, and that's what we were looking at. And so we did the Terra Deli with this dial design in 4 colors. And one was the gray, natural gray of the secret alloy, and the other were blue, Bordeaux, Burgundy, and black. And the secret alloy takes its name from the alloy that we use for guilloche making. We do a lot of guilloche in Czapek, and we use this alloy because it's slightly harder than the 18-karat gold. So there is 55% of precious metal, of which inside is gold, platinum, palladium, and silver. And so all this makes the mix that is strong enough and beautiful enough to make a beautiful guilloche or a beautiful lame. So that's the story of that dial.
Fantastic. Okay, and which city is it you were born in?
So I was born in Lyon, which is in France, and my family comes from the southwest of France, in Corrèze. So I relate when I speak about my origins. I relate more to Corrèze, which is a completely lost department in the middle of France, but that is magnificent, and that is where the roots are.
Well, the reason I ask about this is because the watch I'm wearing today has got a little bit of French flair in it, I believe. I'm wearing the Seconde Timex Q. This is a watch that came out for Valentine's Day. It was limited edition. It sold out super quick. We were hoping to talk about it on the show sooner, but we've had so many watches in to talk about and review, etc., that this is the first opportunity, just as Watches Wonders is happening, to talk about a watch that came out a couple of months ago that instantly sold out. So if you know about Timex, you know the history, you'll know that a few years ago they brought back the Q. Some people call it the Timex Q, some people call it the Q Timex. This is the L My X version. This is the loser watch, that's what they call it, not what I call it. And it is based on the true, tried and tested reimagining of their 70s line. It's a bit of I suppose it's a bit of a hair puller, depending how shaved your wrists are. But in the middle of it, instead of a second hand, you have got that L sign that you've seen so many times in 90s and 2000 teen movies. This guy knows what he's doing, he's collaborated with everybody, and they're always fun-filled, they've always got a little bit of adventure in them, and this one here, as I say, it was super inexpensive, only a few $100s, but unfortunately, by the time you see this, and the time you hear this, and the time you look at our show notes, they are just a distant memory. But if you want to find out what he's up to, and the guys at Timex, be sure to follow them on Instagram. All the details will be in our show notes, and I probably should have said that at the beginning. You'll want to follow along at home in this episode, particularly because there's going to be a whole load of information, a whole load of pictures, tech spec, all that kind of stuff, because when Czapek do something, you need to pay attention. It's not just a funky coloured dial. There is so much going on beyond, under the bridges, under the movement, under the new sapphire glass we're going to talk about later on. But that's my wrist check done. Check the show notes for all the details on that. So anyway, back to what has been going on. It's been 12 months. And it has been action-packed. We have seen such a dramatic change in the watch industry, from the big players upending things to the follow-on effects of COVID, the NFT, the crypto crash, although crypto seems to be doing all right again. And things have just changed. The whole paradigm has shifted, and it happened just at the beginning of the pandemic. It just happened at the end. So do you want to give us a recap of how things have been with Czapek, how you've seen changes in the industry, and how it has affected you guys?
Yeah, let's not forget that it's a cyclical industry. So everybody pretends to be surprised, but we all knew it was going to happen. There is no reason for it to change, So we are just now at the end of a cycle, and there will be the bottom of a wave, and we are surfers, so we know that's just the moment to keep to breathe deeply before the next waves arrives. So Yeah, the for us, we were making about, we started the first year to 2016, we did 88 watches. And then we quickly went above 100, but we stayed in the 150 around. And then we launched the Antarctic, and the Antarctic was the result of what you described at the beginning of little Xavier running around the globe, meeting fellow watch lovers, listening to them, discussing, and realizing that the thing is that I understood that there was something missing, which is a proper sport horlogerie watch. There was very good options. No discussion about that. The Trinity is there for a good reason. But in the Trinity, there was never this question about, well, shouldn't I start with making a very strong, fantastically finished horlogerie movement? And that's what we did. And we conceived the movement from an angle of aesthetic and of them from an angle of resistance. So we choose, for example, German silver rather than brass because the resistance to torsion is better. And we decided to have indirect second, minutes, and hours to better expose the movement everywhere around the main plate. Of course, this was creating some more difficulties in terms of chronometry. But the Tic Tac, we used our best escapement that we had from Atokalpa, which is widely used in the industry. So you can recognize it with this little maslot. This is where we started. And by doing these movements, and then we conceived the case, and then we conceived the dial, and then we conceived the bracelets. And we did that step by step. So you cannot do like 100% of one and then the second one. You start, you have the first foundation of the first one, then you do the foundation of the second one and the foundation of the third one. And that's how you proceed. And then you build the different level of the watch, and you combine everything in the end. And that really was the decision that came from there, because we understood that some people were wearing beautiful watches during the weekend because they had a beautiful collection, but not necessarily during the week because they were afraid of breaking the watch, of showing a too nice watch at work, etc. So we wanted to make a watch that was discreet. Nobody knew us, so that was one of the reasons to buy us. Was nobody can tell what is a Czapek, so nobody can have a price for that. So it's easy. It's a bit changing now. I'm not sure I'm happy about that, but I like the moment where we're secrets, and then we launched the Antarctic, and the Antarctic was just incredible. So we decided, we launched on 26th May 2020, in the middle of the first wave of the COVID. There was no launch that day, and suddenly we said, okay, we have 99 pieces. We give ourselves 40 days to sell them, and in 17 days it was sold. And then we launched a very limited edition with hand-painted varnish featuring Orion Nebula on the dial. Was sold in a few days. And then we launched Roaring 40s, the Passage de Drake Roaring 40s. It was sold out in 23 minutes. And then another one, and then another one, and then time was reducing to minutes, to server crashes because we had too many people coming in. And there was a sort of an acceleration element that was creating a sort of a craze. Okay, then that's difficult to live when you are in a company that you manage, and you suddenly realize that the world is big, and when you start counting for people everywhere in the globe, that's a lot of people. Okay, it's you cannot even picture it in your mind. Suddenly you have demands coming from everywhere, and it's hard to understand how to manage it.
I can have an example in my head of what you mean on a very smaller scale, because last year we did an inexpensive limited edition called the Braveheart, and it sold out in 10 hours. And it wasn't the people who were happy that they got the watch, it was the people who were unhappy that they didn't. And the emails and the complaints and everybody, you should have made more, it should have been more of them available. It's getting that expectation and managing your customer or the person who's really interested in your brand and trying not to upset them, but you can't please everybody,
And it's a journey. So it's not because suddenly the wind is strong that you have to change everything. You don't change your destination. You have to continue following your vision, following your path. This is a danger of success, is to lose sight of where you want to go. And and we lost it at one moment. But we lost it in a nice way.
Okay, how did that happen?
We suddenly we were confronted. We decided to close the order book after Watches and Wonder 2021. But we closed it too late. Okay. So no, 2022, sorry. Because 2021 was still COVID. 2022. And so we had over 2,000, maybe 3,000 watches ordered. At that point of time, we were doing 300 watches per year. So it was like 10 times the capacity we had to produce. And so we jumped to the next level and we said, okay, how many watches could we do? How many should we do? Because we didn't want people to wait. Okay. And the pressure of delivery, the pressure of making everyone happy made us thought that we should produce 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 watches. And so we remade the business plan. We bought fantastic machines, a Bumotech Neo 191, which is the best CNC machine today, made in Switzerland. And we really made a big plan. We moved from a 80 square meter manufacturer to 717 square meter manufacturer, so times 10, The team moved from 8 people to 24. You see the evolution was just crazy. And then we realized, no, that's not what we should do. We should stay in the 1,000. We always said we wanted to stay in the 1,000. There will be always cycle. There will be always ups and downs. And we collect rare people. We don't want to become a mass brand. So, of course, we want to give a chance to a lot of people to discover horlogerie with a soul. Horlogerie with everything respected, but very creative at the same time. But that shouldn't be made to the detriment of the pleasure of working, of the creation of everything. It's not. This is a business that is driven by love and creativity, not by profit and volume. Okay, so less is more, and then we came back to that. And my good surprise was that even though we had made the business plan over 3,000 watches, we could be a very good and nicely profitable company with 1,000 watches. So we did not have to be going to the maximum. We could be super efficient, staying in the number of 25, 30 people. That's a very nice number because you know everyone. You have the time to discuss personally with everyone every day if you want. Not every day 30 people, but every day you can take 5-10 minutes with everyone and with someone, and then another person the day after. And that means you have a real sort of family company, a small company where people do the best they can, and you don't need to have people who are just there to manage and do nothing. And this morning in our morning live, this is the name of our morning meeting. It was a very funny program at 6 a.m. in France, and that's the name of our morning meeting. It's morning live. And I told them, you have full autonomy, because if you are good, you don't need a manager to tell you what to do. So if you have a doubt, please refer, but then move forward. And so, the watchmakers are like 3 horses. They just love to run in the prairie. And if there are 2, 3 watchmakers that just go, I'm going to see who's going to be the fastest. You don't need to time them. Just give them the pleasure to work. And that's enough. And it's the same with the people who are machining, the people who are polishing, the people who are assembling. This is always the same. Give more freedom, and they can do an incredible work. But don't compromise on control, of course. And I assume always the decision you made. Okay, that's end of the parenthesis. So that was my big mistake. Was actually to tell Watch Pro during Geneva Watch Days, I think 2022, that we were going for 3,000 plus, maybe 4,000 watches. And the journalists rounded that up to 5,000. And this interview was read by the whole community everywhere. So that was my biggest mistake. I assume it. And I pulled the brake. And I said, no. Wait. We know where we go. This is not a volume question. This is not a volume exercise. It's about the beauty of and the pleasure of making beautiful watches.
Wow. Well, if there's one takeaway for anybody listening and watching this, it is if Rob Corder gives you a drink at an event, he is the editor of and co-founder of Watch Pro, you be careful what you tell him, because we've been out for many drinks across the world with Rob Corder, and he's a very good gentleman, but he's also a very investigative journalist. He will get to the bottom of things.
I'm grateful. He was right. He pushed me to tell the numbers, and I said them, and then that made me realize that I had gone a little bit off the track that we were following. And it was important to go back to the route that we were having since the beginning.
Yes, well, the track we're going to follow just now, as you're listening to this, me and Dave will be on a flight, not on a train track, but going across to Geneva because PAL Expo is holding Watches and Wonders literally within hours of this episode dropping. You've heard the ones before. You've heard us talking things up. We've given you what's going to be happening there. We're going to have a bit of a palate cleanser on the Thursday. So as you're hearing this on the Monday, the Thursday episode, we're probably not going to talk about Watches and Wonders at all because it's a pre-record and we want to just calm things down a little bit. Before the calm is the storm, and the storm today is Czapek. You guys have got some new releases. I've already seen exactly what you've got in place because thankfully we get embargoed information ahead of time so we can go through it, we can work on what we're going to talk about, get the pictures sorted out, all the bits and balls for social media and the website. But now's the time for you to explain all on the podcast to people about what it is you guys are doing this year.
I will start with the model that we have already released. This is a little secret that I share with the Scottish Watches fan and your audience, Ricky. You know, in the years of the COVID, now we are post-COVID, things are a bit better. The supply chain was dramatic in watches, but everybody has gone through that because cars were slow to get, even fridge. Sometimes you had to wait 6 months to get a fridge. When you create a new watch, you go through the prototyping phase. You know, when you've got good designers, the design of the watch is always beautiful, but the reality is always 3D. And this 3D-dimensionality requires some adaptations. That's why from the prototype version 1 to the prototype version 3 or 4, there is a big change sometimes. And because of the supply chain delay, we couldn't get to this version 2 or version 3. We could get to what we had, and we were just like, this is the what? Hoping to sell it because we couldn't wait more, because then you know that you got all your costs running, you know. And so we launched the Complicité, the one that we did with Bernard out of our friendship.
Is that Bernard Lederer?
Yeah, Bernard Lederer. So it's a new iteration of the Place Vendôme, and this watch is the 8th iteration of a complex combination of escapement, 2 escapements at the differential. The most famous one is the one that Philippe Dufour did based on the work of 3 students in 1930. So, and he was showing the way, paving the way for everyone, saying, you know, I didn't invent it, so I'm saying where this is coming from. And that's really cool, okay? So this is the watch. You can see the 2 escapements at 4:30 and 7:30, and you can see at 12 the differential and all the gear trains from the 2 escapements to the differential. And the watch is fantastic. The conception is incredible because the minute is direct, so it's very well thought in terms of efficiency in watchmaking. But then the sapphire glass, we used a sapphire glass very much inspired from the Antarctic with a glass box and an angle. And the problem of that angle is it was reducing a lot the perceived size of the watch. So we changed it into a dome watch, okay? A dome sapphire with 3 radius that are combined together to make a flatter part in the center and a rounder part on the side. And this opens the watch completely. So now the watch is much nicer. It was already very nice. It was already wow. But now we have an effect that brings it to the next level. And that's an illustration of what is a quest for beauty. It's an unfinished work made of sometimes frustration that you transfer home into great pleasure because you found a way to do it even nicer. And that's what we do in Czapek, and that's why it's never ending, and that's why we rework, and that's why from the prototype to the final product there is a big difference, and that's the way we work, yeah, and approach beauty. So let's go now to the first launch of Watches and Wonder, which has already happened. It's the Erebus, the Mount Erebus. That's why also I spoke about this lame dial before, and here, guess what? A new lame dial is out. It's a blue dial. It was the second most attractive color, or most sold color, let's say. All of them are attractive, but then there are more people liking the blue than the burgundy. We combined it with a solid gold version of the Antarctic. There was a request from many people. We needed to be a little bit more larger, I would say, to be capable to handle the investments that you need at the beginning of starting a gold model, a full gold model, so full gold bracelet and case, everything. It's a bit like, imagine like an old locomotive of an old train, these images where you have to start and you have the wheels who are trying to start the tons of weight of the locomotive. Well, this is a bit like this when you start a full solid gold bracelet watch. You have to invest a lot for maybe 1 year time to get everything ready. And then once you get ready, then you start selling the first pieces. And this is a Rolling Stones.
Now, this one has been released on Instagram. You will have seen this one before we shared it. Since it's been out for a few days, what has the feedback been like? Because we can actually ask you this because it's happened.
Yeah, well, the feedback was excellent. What's interesting also is that there is a lot of interest for the versions in rubber and in alligator. So that's a bit where people say, depends on the culture. In some culture, people will wear the solid gold without any problem on the bracelet. In some other culture, like in Europe, people like to play it down a bit, and uh, and that's how we are selling the piece. So you see, we adapt also to the context, and the context also shows us the way.
Fantastic. Okay, and what other goodies do we have in store?
So now we are left with our surprise for Watches and Wonder, a new collection that we have called Promenade. So Promenade is an interesting word. It's in between different things, and it's also the way we would love to imagine someone walking along the lakes in Switzerland, enjoying the view, enjoying this moment of time, enjoying this moment where time seems to stop. Uh, and that's why we call it promenade, on the opposite of a super sporty approach. It's a pendant of the Antarctic. And somehow it's the child of both the Kedeberg, our first collection, the 7-day power reserve, and the Antarctic. So you can feel and see and appreciate the different traits of these two collections. So it's a more classic approach. So it's not a bracelet, integrated bracelet. It has lugs. It's very thin. It has the famous recess that the Kedeberg started to have all the time, and and became a code for the new Czapek. And it has a striking dial with a small second that seems to be the start and the reason to be of this dial. And it is, in fact, because it's like a drop of water in the lake. So you imagine a completely blue dial made of our sapphire blue enamel, and the dial has been stamped. It's a dial made of sterling silver. It has been stamped to recreate waves. The enamel over the waves has different depths and therefore creates some lines that are light blue in between parts that are darker blue, as if it was really the waves, the ripple on the lake of a drop of water, And that's this mesmerizing effect is really incredible, never done. And it's a bit the continuation of the watch you were talking about that was released last year, the Collective. It's called the Lanikai, and that's another way to do it with a different design and a different blue. So we played on that concept that we searched and adjusted with Claude-Éric from Dans un Cadran to the point of completely managing it perfectly. And now we have this new version of the Promenade.
Well, I'm going to jump in because you are notorious for commandeering the entire conversation, and I've got some things to say because I really like the look of this one. I loved the Collective watch last year. I loved it was blue sand dunes, and this one here, like you say, it's a ripple, or if you were to throw a pebble or a stone into the water and watch the concentric circles emanate from the center point with the way that the light goes through the ripples and the waves, and you see the different colorations of the blue reflected from the sky above. That's what this looks like. It's mesmerizing. It looks like the time tunnel where you've got that hypnotic stare into the bottom corner where the sub-seconds is. This is phenomenal. This is the one that I want to see in real life because the photos on the webcam look good, and I know that webcams are not the greatest thing in the world, so I can't wait to see this little guy and get some pictures of it. Right, you can turn it around and you can show us the back now.
Thanks, Ricky. I welcome to the English class lesson. I'm really so bad at describing, and Ricky is saving my life all the time because I don't have enough vocabulary. I mean, I should go back to school with my kids and learn finally proper words of English to describe the watches. Sorry for that, mates, but come to Watches of Wonder and you will see it in the flesh and appreciate it and put your own words. So the movement is the SHX5.1. Okay, so the SHX5 has a central second. And so you have a bridge in the middle that is a 6 inward angle bridge, beautifully polished, mirror polished on the top. And this one is holding the gear train that goes from the natural second to the central second. Now, here we have the natural second that comes out and is a small second. So we don't need anymore that bridge. And this is the biggest change between the SHX5 and the SHX5.1. That's the evolution of the two, is the fact that it's a small second movement. The rest is exactly the same. We will have in the final version a darker main plate like in the SHX5, and always every angle that is hand polished and has beveled angles, so it's anglage, manual anglage. So the beauty is also by the fact that you have a total of 6 bridges on that watch, and that's a reminiscence of the old pocket watches. We keep on buying some old Czapek pocket watches. Look at them, and I suddenly felt, now it's a pity because rationalization has made us lose the poetry of watchmaking. In the past, our Asians, they were doing watches with 3, 4, 5 bridges. We should come back to that, but not do it in an old way. Do it in a modern way, taking the best of the past. And that's what we tried to do with the SHX5. That's probably what a lot of people understood without necessarily knowing the whole story. It just went under the skin, get under the skin. Yeah, that's what we like. And the second model, is Guilloche. I was talking about Guilloche, and here is what we call the Guilloche Soleil. It's like a rising sun, and it's a very unique Guilloche design, not made before. Playing a lot with the soleillage, so it's also mesmerizing. And here the creator is Yannick. Yannick is a prototypist at RVK, and he has done that with Jan, who is the boss of RVK. And Rebecca is a small company belonging to Metaler. And we work together very closely. So we brief them, give them some ideas. They come back with other ideas. And all this is like a melting pot of ideas and of creativity. And one day came up with a few dials and said, look, if we want to play with a small second, then this should be an interesting. That was my briefing was play with a small second. And they came back with this idea. I said, that's fantastic. That's great. That's the guilloche we want to have. So that's why we registered it as a new design. And we release it now in this beautiful ivory color that is close to the color of champagne, actually.
That one, it's almost like shards of light coming from, again, the lower point round the 4 o'clock position where your sub-seconds is located. It's not at the 6, it's not over at the 3 or the 9, it's just down there, almost where you'd expect a date position in certain other brands of watch. But where the ripples in the water of the previous model you showed were nice and blue, this one, you're right, it's an off silver, it is a champagne colour. It's not full gold, it's almost a mix, maybe a 10-15% gold into silver. And along with the shards of light coming from the centre, there's a second, almost larger shard of light emanating from that centre point as well. And yeah, these things look great. That reminds me of clocks that I remember seeing maybe, I don't know, 50 years ago when they were just coming round out of Art Deco into the next stages, and you saw those fantastic ways of displaying time in the home or in the office. You've captured that, but again, with a modern twist, bringing everything bang up to date, but utilising thoughts of the past.
Yes, it's exactly that. Thanks, Ricky, for raising that point. We take something that is an old technique and we try to do the most modern we can with that technique. And it's not coming like that, it's a process. So you come up with the first thing and then you release it. It's a success. At the end, you want to go even further and even further. And that's what we are doing. Never cutting corner. It's always handmade guilloche with the old technique, with the road engine that people turn, to get things done. To get the engraving perfect, but showing that you can always invent, because the only limit is your own brain. So you release this limit and you go beyond that. Now, let's look at the second model. And here you see the effect even more strongly. It's a night blue color. And you see the soleillage that is coming from the small second is quite incredible, and you can there are too many reflections in this office. So I hope you will use better images in the montage, but this effect is quite unique. The first time we achieve that level of soleillage that really brings the eyes to one part or the other of the dial.
That one is almost hypnotic. It's holographic almost, the way that light gets captured and reflected back. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing these ones. Wow, okay. What a box of tricks you've got. Oh, there's more. Right, okay, there's more.
And then there is, so for Watches and Wonder, and only for Watches and Wonder, there is a model, and it's the first time I announce it. There is a model in secret alloy. So it's a different tone. It's a gray tone instead of a night blue or a champagne tone, or beige ivory. This is much more the gray tone. You can see it's kind of, the same as the tone of my watch, slightly different though. But you can see the natural color, and that's going to be the secret alloy, which we are not launching. So I've said nothing. That's a secret benefit. That's a secret benefit of the Scottish watches, because we love you guys. You've been with us all the time. You got humor. You're cool. You don't take yourself seriously. That's exactly our spirit. So that's why I give a little heads up on what's going on in Watches and Wonder.
Wow. Okay. Well, that is a hell of a box of tricks, a box of delights. It's not even Christmas. We're not even halfway through the year yet, and Xavier has delivered in spades. There's so much going on across in Geneva over the forthcoming days. Lots of brands will be talking about this, that, and the other. But if you're going, if you're press, if you're a client, if you've managed to sneak in somehow, go across and check out what Czapek are up to. If you're going in the public days, I heartily recommend this is the first stop because they've got everything on display and they've got some of their classic models as well. So you can look through the prior catalogue, the historic releases over the past decade. I can't believe it's a decade that you guys have actually been going now. It's absolutely flown in because I remember seeing one of your early Codebergs in Glasgow. I think it was in Lanes maybe 6-7 years ago, and it was the first time I got to see a Czapek. And I couldn't believe what was in front of me. I couldn't believe it was actually for sale because these things evaporate. So yeah, if you get the chance, even if you come to Glasgow, there are people that can show you these things. I believe James Portman's son, they obviously deal with you guys. You've got different folks across the globe. So the best thing to do is obviously to check out the Czapek website, have a look and see who they work with across the world and go and see these things in real life, or get to Geneva Watch Days or Dubai Watch Week or wherever it is Xavier and the crew will be. So anything you want to finish up on before we let people get on their way?
Yeah, I have to confess that maybe I did another mistake, but this time I really weighted it, which is to go opposite direction. Decided to make the price of that watch the smaller possible.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Easter, an Easter egg fell on my head, and I don't know. I just felt like, no, things are going the wrong way. It's too easy to raise prices. We should start with a very attractive price on that Promenade. And so I restarted. I recalculated to the most accessible price that we could have, keeping enough margin to reinvest in R&D in the company, and that's the price we selected. So we'll see. That's completely counterintuitive, because in luxury you should always have high prices because it's a benefit. Here it's welcome to the new luxury, where some people decide to change the rules.
You always do. You always come up with surprises. First time we saw you many years ago, you surprised us, you blew us away. You told us tales, you put on your very French accent to impress us and to entertain, and you always do, and you definitely have done in this show here. So yeah, I would commend everybody to go and check out what you guys are up to. Do you want to tell everybody your website, your Instagram, your YouTube, where people can keep up to date? And I notice you've actually got a mailing list, which is probably a good place that people should put their email addresses in.
Absolutely. Always keep in touch. We love that. And then the website's very simple, czapek.com. Instagram is the same, at Czapek or at Czapek Genève. So it's very easy to find us. We're easy to find. We're not hiding, but we're not making too much noise either, because we prefer a little bit of secrecy than too much noise. And yeah, that's it. It's always a pleasure to be in touch with you, Ricky. I didn't play my Clouseau game or my Clouseau joke today, but I save it for the next time.
Yeah, we can keep that one in reserve.
Thank you for the beautiful Scottish accent too. Everybody is asking me, how do you understand him? I don't understand what he says. I said, I don't know. I cannot understand English accent now. And Scottish seems now easy, after these years talking to you. I love it. And I love the spirit of that you have with the watches.
I think we figured it out after 5 years. The reason we've got so many listeners and downloads to the show is people have to download it twice to understand what the hell we say. What a great marketing campaign that could be. Always a pleasure, Xavier, and we will be seeing you literally the day after this episode drops. We're recording everything ahead of time, so the information that you've given us just now, that will be public by the time you hear this. So yeah, check the show notes, check the website, check Instagram. And there is going to be an absolute barrage of information coming out over the next few days. We're going to be getting on-site pictures, video clips, Instagram reels, YouTube shorts, all that good stuff from Czapek's booth at Watches and Wonders at Geneva at Pal Expo. But all we can really tell you to do at the moment is, if you're not already, follow us on Instagram at Scottish Watches. Our website is scottishwatches.co.uk. And we're always looking for people to get involved. We're always looking for ideas, thoughts. If you want to maybe write a piece, if you want to do a review, an opinion piece, an article, get in touch, drop us an email, info@scottishwatches.co.uk. That's the same email address if you want to suggest a guest, you want to talk about a brand, you want to put us in touch with somebody, or you want to recommend a model that maybe has just passed us by, because we get a lot of emails. Sometimes we miss them, sometimes we don't get them at all. So definitely get in touch. It's all community driven what we do here. And that is it. So thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys again soon.
Bye guys.